Hi everyone. Welcome everybody to our first meeting in November, our November 2nd meeting. Glad to see that everyone had a safe and hopefully spooky Halloween. Welcome to our meeting. For roll call, all board members are present and we're joined by our two favorite student representatives. We have Marissa Duterte from McNair High School, the McNair Eagles. Welcome, Marissa. Thank you for coming tonight. And from Tokay High School, the Tokay Tigers, we have Taylor Willis. Welcome, Taylor. Thank you for coming to our meeting. Marissa, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. As always, we're joined by our crack executive staff. We have the executive assistant to the board, Ms. Armstrong. Michelle, thank you for coming tonight. We have our PIO extraordinaire, Chelsea Von Geer, working with our social media, and our IT tech without any compromise is Michael. So thank you, Michael, for running our meeting tonight. We will report out from closed session, and we have nothing to report from closed session. I know you're all really excited for that, so sorry to disappoint you all. Moving on, we have a public hearing, so I declare open the public hearing on the Lodi Unified School District contract reopeners with the Lodi Education Association, LEA, for the 2021-22 year, which proposes an improvement of 5.07% to the total compensation, salary, and benefits. And Mr. McKilligan, anything to add? Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, with no student comments, I will declare closed the public hearing.
Wait.
Sorry?
Wait, I did want to speak.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't understand.
I reopened it. You can speak.
Oh, is that it?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Okay. No, we're having public hearings on the reopeners for the contracts. So, but we will have the public comment is coming up shortly. But I will now declare open the public hearing for the Lodi Unified District contract reopeners with the California School Employees Association, CSEA, for the 2021-22 school year, which also proposes an improvement of 5.07% to the total compensation, salary, and benefits package. This is being offered by Mr. McKilligan. Anything to add, Mr. McKilligan? Any comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. And we will now declare open the public hearing for the Lodi Unified School District contract reopeners for the Lodi Unified Supervisorial Group, LUSG, for the 2021-22 year, which proposes an improvement of 5.0% to the total compensation package for salary and benefits. And this is being offered by Mr. McKilligan, Assistant Superintendent Mr. McKilligan. Anything to add? Nothing to add. Anything to add from the board? Anything to add from the public? And I will declare that public hearing to be closed. And last but not least, we will declare open the public hearing for the Lodi Unified District contract reopeners with the Lodi Pupil Personnel Association, LPPA, for the 2021-2022 school year, which proposes an improvement of 5.0% to the total compensation package of salary and benefits. And this is being offered by Mr. McKilligan. So any comments from Mr. McKilligan? Any comments from the board? any comments from the public, I will declare our public hearing to be closed. And that concludes our public hearings for tonight on the contract reopener. Tonight, we're very fortunate to start with a recognition. So, LPPA President of the Lodi Pupil Personnel Association, Dean Blau, can you join me at the podium, please?
Bring some beers.
And break stuff.
You as well?
Oh my.
Cheryl Rothy.
Very, very good. More the merrier. You know how this goes. So I have with me, is this on? Maybe it's just volume? No. There you go. Now, okay. I have with me a proclamation from the Lodi Unified District, which recognizes National School Psychology Week. Whereas during the week of November 8th through 12th, 2021, schools throughout the United States will celebrate National School Psychology Week to highlight the important work school psychologists do to help students thrive. And whereas this year's theme is Let's Get in Gear. The theme's acronym provides a challenge to grow, both personally and professionally, encourage engagement in best practices, advocate for children's access to mental health and learning, and support to rise. And to rise implies resilience and renewal despite the challenges of the past. And whereas all children and youth learn best when they are healthy, supported, and receive an education that enables them to thrive, grow, and thrive, strive, grow, and thrive occasionally, socially and emotionally. And whereas schools can more effectively ensure that all students are able to learn when they meet the needs of the whole child and provide integrated, multi-tiered supports. And whereas sound psychological principles are integral to instruction and learning, social and emotional development, prevention and early intervention, school safety, and supporting culturally diverse student populations. And whereas, there's only two more whereas. School psychologists are specifically trained to deliver a continuum of mental health services and academic supports that lowers barriers to teaching and learning. And whereas school psychologists are trained to access student and school-based barriers, to assess student and school-based barriers to learning, as well as individual strengths, utilize data-based decision-making, implement research-driven prevention and interventions. I got to tell you.
Great job.
We've had, this is quite the proclamation. Board, you really did one. All right. So, whereas school psychologists are trained to assess student and school-based barriers to learning, as well as individual strengths, utilize data-based decision-making, implement research-driven prevention and intervention strategies, and evaluate outcomes and improve accountabilities, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education of Lodi Unified School District hereby designates November 8th through 12th, 2021 as National School Psychology Week. Signed the second day of November, Clerk of the Board, Courtney Porter, Ronald John Freitas, President of the Board. Congratulations. A few words?
Ron, thank you for making it all the way through that proclamation.
Wow.
Congrats, I feel like we should have applauded your efforts. And whereas it is National School Psychology Week, starting on November 8th, I'd like to introduce Cheryl Rothy, our lead school psychologist.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas, members of the board, Dr. Washer. We, as you have mentioned, okay, ad nauseum, our theme to the National School Psychology Week is Let's Get It in Gear. Essentially, this highlights the importance of relationships between students, staff, and parents within a school. By fostering positive relationships, we can work together to overcome the challenges that we're experiencing. Some activities that we'll be doing include recognizing 3 good things each day. To also build social connections and to express gratitude. The school psychologists are proud to contribute to Lodi Unified's vision of working with the community to provide student-centered, safe learning environment that cultivates the character, fosters academic excellence, embraces diversity, and empowers all students to achieve their full potential. School psychologists help children thrive at school, at home, and in life. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Sean.
You have some other people with you. You want to introduce them?
Yes, a couple other school psychologists. This is Joanne Blount is my wife and a school psychologist here at Lodi Unified. And Sharon Sue is a school psychologist here as well.
Very nice. Thank you for coming. Mr. Nava, I'm sure you want to say a few nice words about this proclamation.
Okay, very important, especially through this pandemic year. My gosh, you people are doing an outstanding job and trying, I know you're trying hard to get these youngsters back in line the way they were before the pandemic. And I appreciate that. You do hard work, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nava. Mr. Neely, some comments from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Freitas. That's one of the hardest jobs there is. My gosh, I don't envy you guys and what you've got to do. And you know what, it has been just like so much tougher this past year, and you guys have hung in there, and we very much appreciate that and what you're doing for our kids. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Other comments from the board? All right, I join in my colleagues. The gear theme, I really like it. I think the 4 goals are going to be outstanding, and what you're doing for our kids, we can't thank you enough. So you've more than earned this proclamation, whereas, and thank you very, very much for the great job you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice. Congratulations, school psychologists and LPPA. Moving on with our recognitions, we'd like to recognize that November is National Native American Heritage Month. This month we recognize and celebrate the rich traditions, languages, and contributions of Native Americans and indigenous people and honor the influence they have had on the advancement of the United States. The first American Indian Day in a state was declared in the second Saturday of May 1916 by the governor of New York. In 1990, President George H. Bush approved a joint resolution designating November 1990 as National American Indian Heritage Month. So the board at this time would like to recognize all of our Native Americans and celebrate them in this month of November. Also, we recognize that California's Sikh American Appreciation Month is in November. And November is California Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month. This month we acknowledge the significant contributions made by Californians of Sikh heritage to our state, and we recognize and celebrate the rich history and shared principles of Sikh Americans. On behalf of the Board of Education, Lodi Unified acknowledges and celebrates Native Americans, Indigenous people, Sikh Americans, and Punjabi American communities who continue to make important contributions to our community, state, nation, and district. So congratulations, and please recognize, we look forward to recognizing you for the month of November. We have a spotlight tonight, and that is for Lodi Middle School, and I believe Dr. Washer.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. There are so many wonderful things going on in our school district that we like to bring you something to spotlight every once in a while at a meeting so you can see some of the great things. Tonight we have Lodi Middle School, and I'll ask Mr. McGregor to come up and do the honors of the introduction.
Good evening. Thank you, President Freitas, members of the board, and Dr. Washer. If I could have Principal Cassandra Iwamia, Paige Blevins, and Dan Taylor come on up, please. I'd like to give these folks an opportunity to point out some things that are happening at Lodi Middle School. The things that they'll be talking about this evening for just a brief moment are things that have helped to build culture. It's been tough having the kids come back and begin to work with each other and remember the intricacies of being successful in school and working together. And these guys have got a few things to share that talk about the school climate and just bringing the social emotional health of the students into a great place at Lodi Middle School. So Cassandra, if you would.
Thank you. President Freitas, Dr. Washer, and members of the board, thank you for having us here this evening and letting us share a little bit about Lodi Middle School. Lodi Middle has been just a really special school to me. If you know me, you know that I grew up in Lodi, and I started off my career as a student at Lodi Middle when it was Senior L. And I even had one of the board members' mom as my 7th grade teacher for social studies. And I returned and I've taught there for 15 years and then became vice principal under Mr. McGregor, and then I took over as principal a few years ago. It's been a tough past couple years, but the great thing about our staff and our students is just how we build relationships, and we continue to do that even today. This year, we decided to kind of build on we have an advisory class schedule where we meet with the kids every single day, all the teachers do, with a small group, about 20 kids or so in each of their classes. And this year, we decided to kind of build on that, and we did a house system. We have heard a lot of great things about some of our feeder schools using a house system, so we wanted to do that. We got to see Ron Clark do his professional development, and that really inspired us to kind of try that too. So I'm going to let Paige Blevins here kind of explain. We did a special event at the end of the first quarter featuring our house system.
Hi Paige, welcome to our meeting.
Hi, good evening, President Freitas and members of the board, and Dr. Washer. Wherever you I teach at Lodi Middle School and have my whole career. Love Lodi Middle. We always strive to build connections with students and staff, and as Cassandra said, most recently with our advisory classes. So we took our advisory classes, which have been connecting with the teacher and spending time with each other, kind of having a place that they can go where they're safe. And we took it up a notch to promote the team building and a sense of belonging by doing our the houses. Each advisory class belongs to one of 7 houses. Our houses are named after the letters in our mascot, which is the Viking, V for valor, I for inspiration, K for kindness, I for integrity, N for noble, and G for glory. Last quarter, our houses had their first activity. It was a competition with outdoor games. The students worked together and watched short videos on how to play the games and even practiced and discussed strategies. The students all received a school t-shirt to wear the day of the games. There's the t-shirt. And the students and teachers had fun getting to know the people from the other advisories that were now part of their house, so that was a larger group to be familiar with. All students and teachers participated in the house competition. Even classes like our severely handicapped class were in a house and part of the competition. Students in the SDC class helping their team win the cup toss outside was pretty cool to see. The houses that won the outdoor games were Inspiration, which just happened to be my house, and Noble, and we got a house cup, which was kind of fun, and we have our flags. Now, the winning flags are hanging proudly in the office windows, so we don't have those here, but we have the other flags. This quarter, our houses are joining together for a canned food drive, with Thanksgiving. And we also have an activity coming up later this quarter called Fun House Day. So you'll all have to stay tuned for details on that later. Thank you for having us tonight.
Paige,
Yes.
I'm also assuming that winning the cup also came with a free trip to tonight's board meeting? Is that?
I think so, yes.
I'm
the lucky
thinking
one.
that was one of the things. Oh.
And we have one more teacher, and that's
Yes,
Mr. Dan Taylor, and he's going to tell you a little bit about, he was, we've tried to get a mini grant from Dr. Solly's mini grant program, and so we were so fortunate as to win. And so Mr. Taylor's going to tell you about his STEAM class that he got to start because we offered two 7th period classes this year, which we haven't done before.
Hi, Dan. Welcome to our meeting.
Hello. Thank you, President Freitas, Dr. Washer, members of the board. I had to come anyway. I didn't win a cup. My house didn't win. But I came anyway. So
It appears you won a box.
yes, I bought a box.
Yeah.
So my name is Dan Taylor, and I'm currently teaching the extended day 3D printing technology class at Lodi Middle School. Last school year, I decided to write a grant for this class because of my passion of 3D printing as a hobby. I knew I could turn my knowledge of my hobby into in-depth lessons students could participate in and experience for themselves in this class. This is a computer-based class and has many elements to it, including art, mathematics, design, and engineering. After learning how to design in a program known as Blender, the students continue to work on various projects to further improve their skills in class. Once they have completed a digital project in Blender, it can then be transferred to the 3D printers I have in my class, and they physically can see what they virtually had now in their hands. So, such as this right here, I have a few objects that they printed out in class in this box that I brought. That itself is very exciting and gratifying process. A big part of the class is trial and error, designing a project, seeing it, if it prints correctly, and then making the appropriate adjustments before printing again. Students use math daily to figure out angles, scale, and length while designing. There's also a large amount of collaboration and teamwork throughout the course of the class because of the hands-on nature of the class. I actually had all the students actually build the 3D printers from the ground up for a whole week, which is really neat. I brought some examples in this box so far that the students have worked on, and I appreciate you letting me speak tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Dan.
I think the other thing that was really interesting was the amount of students who are signing up for extended day. We had, I think, over 100, and then we had to whittle it down with 2 classes. But kids are willing to come to school until 3:30, Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays to get a grade outside of the regular school day, so it's really cool.
That's very, very good. Very good. Well, what a great report. I think we have some comments from the board. Mr. Knexted?
Thank you, President Freitas. Sorry, but I always considered middle school the black hole of education, just because of that age group. So it's really important to have a good middle school experience, and I think that makes the transition into high school much simpler and much easier for students, and they're more successful. So thank you for the work you guys do. It's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knexted, for those comments. Other comments from the board, Mr. Heverly?
Yeah, Lodi Senior L, right?
Yep, always.
Long time ago. Lodi Middle School. Middle school is quite a unique experience for teachers and for students. My mother and my sister were both middle school teachers for the majority of their career. And I'll never forget, I asked my sister one time, I said, there was a position open at a high school. And I said, so are you going to take that position? She goes, no, I like middle school. Somebody's got to love those kids. And they really did. And every grade is worthwhile, that's for sure. And if anybody knows anything about me, they know I'm a big supporter of STEM/STEAM. And when Lodi Middle first started their after-school robotics, they had way more signups than they thought they were going to have. Kids love doing things with their hands, and a lot of this 3D printing gives them that experience. And like you said, it's the arts, it's engineering, it's mathematics. That's what they love to do. They love to do stuff with their hands and just do stuff. So thank you very much for this. And the competition, friendly competition, that's good, because that is life. and they do need to learn winning and losing. So I appreciate your work. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Everly, for those comments. And also, not only the competition, but the coming together also to work together on the food drive. So, great ideas. Mr. Neely.
Thank you, Mr. Fritz. Dan, are you getting everything you need as far as materials go?
I haven't received all of my equipment yet.
Okay.
I have about 30 computers outstanding. I've kind of made do in our computer lab.
What are you using for computers?
Just the computer lab set up at Lodi Middle, which was Mr. Mox's room last year.
Macs?
No, they're old HPs. I think a few of them
Okay.
have gone to the wayside.
All right.
And then every night every night I bring home, I need another program still put in place, so every night I go home and I put in their stuff into my own computer to bring it back the next day for them to work on. So
Now, can the kids get online at their house and work on these projects?
both of the programs, Blender and Cura, are completely free. They're openware software. Anyone can have them on any computer.
They can use a Chromebook on it?
You know, there is a way to set up on the Chromebook.
Okay.
I looked into it while I was writing the grant, but I haven't pursued that since then.
Look, this required an incredible amount of work on your part. I know that. I'm a computer guy too. I got my first one before Windows ever came out. You got to do a lot of research. You got to do a lot of checking, and you put all that time in, and this is what's happening. And I want to thank you so much for doing all of the extra things that had to be done to get this accomplished. So thank you very much for that. Let's talk about the house system real quick. I've been to school. I just love how that works. How do you guys assign? Is it random? How do you pick who goes in what house?
Well, they use a hat, of course, right?
We use a sorting hat. It was random, but we did try to kind of group the houses kind of by a map too, but we did also by size.
That makes sense.
By the size of the classes.
Okay.
We wanted to keep the numbers even because some teachers didn't want to have an unfair advantage.
And so most of your kids coming in have already been in a house system at one of the feeder schools, right?
About half of them, yeah, over at some of our feeder schools.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for doing this. That's a lot of work too.
It is, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. I go over to Larson and watch them
Yeah.
when they do their stuff. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So, anyway, good stuff happening in Lodi Unified. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Neely. Other comments from the board? Mr. Porter?
Yes, I just have some questions. With your program that you do, both through STEM and PBS, have you noticed any improvement in academics and also improvements in social emotional well-being?
I think definitely for the social emotional learning, because when the kids first came to us, you know, even the 8th graders, they didn't really know us because they weren't here last year. So it really helped the teachers and the whole staff to get to know them better. I think when they see the teachers having fun and kind of a little competition, it gets the students more into it, and so it really did help. I think all of us get to know each other better. Even I made the teachers do it too. When we had our professional development day, I made them do some games. So because we had new teachers come to our school this year too, a few of them, and it just kind of gets everyone I think into more camaraderie, and so it definitely helped us there.
Well, for all of you, you're the highlight of why everything's good in Lodi Unified, so I appreciate you being here tonight, appreciate what you're doing, and I know that a lot of it is extra time, and that doesn't go unnoticed by me. Those are one of the things that keep our school district going, is the hardworking and the site administrators and teachers that put in the extra time, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter, for those comments. Any other comments from the board? I would join in all my colleagues' comments. Dr. Washer, thank you for the spotlight. It is very exciting to hear about one of our schools, and especially Lodi Middle. I know, Cassandra, the principal you took it over from, was kind of, anyway, well, just enough said, but you had your work cut out for you, but it sounds like you're doing a great job of
He
it.
taught me everything I know.
You don't have to say that anymore. So, but no, obviously, as one of our older middle schools that has been more established in the district, has a strong alumni. What you're doing there is absolutely fantastic. I hung on to this, and Mr. McGregor's keeping an eye on this, making sure that I'm not taking this home. But got kids purchase a 3D printer for Westwood, I would say a half dozen years ago. And the figurines were, you know, these crude little animals. I have one on my desk to recall that a bit, and to now see the detail. And then now what we're doing is creating car parts and space age equipment and medical equipment, and that students are able to experience this firsthand and see what the future is looking like in small detail. Thank you very much for presenting this. And of course, the best thing is we have in-person instruction once again, and that you're helping a transition and helping these kids in social, emotionally, and educationally. We can't thank you enough. So thank you for a wonderful presentation, Dr. Washer, Cassandra, Paige, Dan. Keep up the great work. If you need anything, I'm sure you'll let us know, and don't hesitate to let us know. Much appreciated. Thank you. Moving on with our agenda, we have our superintendent's report. Dr. Washer.
Thank you, Mr. Freitas. Members of the board, just one comment on what Lodi Middle presented in terms of their extracurricular after-school portion. You may recall several meetings, hearing report after report after report that we brought you on the expanded learning grant and the mini grants that were part of that. And this is a direct result. So this is those presentations in action. So I know that Dr. Solly is happy to see that teachers are taking advantage of that and putting it to good use. So your approval of that program is what you saw today. It's just one piece of it, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
A couple things to share with you. Since we do not have a Lodi High Student Board representative today, I will do the honors of sharing that the athletes at Lodi High are engaged in several games and matches this week. Many of the teams have qualified for playoffs. It's quite a list. Girls golf, girls tennis, girls water polo, boys water polo, football, and cross country. All achieved high accolades in their respective sports and are working on playoffs. October 23 through 31 was Red Ribbon Week, and many schools took this opportunity for students to participate in drug prevention and awareness activities and lessons. So I want to thank all of our teachers, counselors, psychologists, administrators, all who were involved in that effort. Have some pictures for you. Lakewood Elementary had a visit from Dr. Troy Brown, our county superintendent of schools. He took a tour of some classrooms and spent some time in a transitional kindergarten class to see what was going on at Lakewood. This is the transitional kindergarten class. He is with teacher Becky Duvall, one of our fantastic TK teachers. And we also have a picture of Troy Brown and Principal Brown interacting with students on the playground. Quite an honor to have the visit from our county superintendent at Lakewood Elementary School. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you for that report, Dr. Washer. I'm sure you didn't talk about the other playoffs teams because our two favorite student representatives are going to have an opportunity to talk about that.
Exactly right.
So Marissa and Taylor, have you decided who's going to go first? Or? All right, Taylor, how are the Tokay Tigers?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Washer. Tokay's after-school program has been gaining a lot of new students seeking help in tutoring and learning new enrichment activities, which has been ran by Miss Epperson. Our vocabulary club, ran by Mr. Pena, is collecting items for Lodi House. Auditions for our spring production of Romeo and Juliet are taking place this week. The students have been already breaking a leg. I know Dr. Washer kind of mentioned it, but we had our rival football game on Friday. Student government made a ton of posters and decorated our stands. Most definitely wanted a different outcome, but regardless, we are so proud of all of our athletes. Tokay Volleyball went to playoffs, which is huge, coming off of the COVID season, and winter sports are just beginning as of yesterday. And then as the voice of Tokay, we want to give a huge thank you to Miss Tammy Foley, our secretary, who just retired. So we just wanted to say congratulations to her.
Very nice. Thank you, Taylor. Marissa, how are things at McNair?
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Washer, members of the board. My name is Marissa Duterte, the student representative of Ronald E. McNair High School. So a few events that we had going on is our Link Crew Haunted House. It was successfully hosted by Link Crew last Thursday to celebrate the Halloween season. It was based off Stephen King's most popular works like Carrie, Cujo, and It. The event only ran from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. By about 9:15, we still had 80 people in line to walk through it, so that was a really big success this year. Upcoming, we have our Harry Potter Return of Hogwarts dinner. Our theater department is holding their first annual Harry Potter Hullabaloo since the pandemic, and it's going to be on Saturday, November 6th. Our audience can experience Hogwarts through various student actors and Hogsmeade shops. For student government, we are currently working on a Snowball Spirit Week. Our team is working real hard to have our first Snowball Week based off of literature and popular books everyone read in their classes. Examples of these popular books are Harry Potter, The Outsiders, Narnia, Frankenstein, and a lot more. For staff recognition, we have Miss Menez. She is our college and career counselor who helps students out with college applications, financial aid, scholarships, and volunteer opportunities. She's recently begun a new program called Workshop Wednesday. So Workshop Wednesday, with the college season vastly approaching, we have so many seniors who don't know where or how to begin. At these new Workshop Wednesdays, Ms. Menez helps students out to begin their post-secondary plans. And for sports, as I am glad to mention, our girls tennis team just had their playoff game today. We are headed off to playoffs with a 9-1 record and placed first in our SJAA conference. According to our athletic director, Mr. Noble, it was McNair's best tennis team yet. And our volleyball team also went to playoffs and placed second in their conference with a volleyball record of 8-2. Our water polo team also ended the season off with a total of 14 wins out of 16 total games. And some other sports that we do have going on are wrestling, girls basketball, boys soccer, and girls soccer, who have all begun tryouts. Thank you, and that's what's happening at McNair so far.
Those are two very great reports. Taylor, that rivalry game, it was standing room only, right? There was a seat to be had, was there?
At football or volleyball?
Football.
Football, yeah. Football was insane. I was on the field the entire night, just trying to pump up our student section and stuff. So I'm kind of glad I was on the field and didn't have to fight for a seat up in the stands. But yeah, both sides were packed.
And I think it was good sportsmanship on both sides, and it showed, both schools showed a whole bunch of enthusiasm.
Most definitely.
So everybody was a winner, is that right?
Yeah. We're a little competitive, but we'll just say yeah.
Marissa, a Hogwarts dinner, is that available to school board members, or?
I believe it is, but I can just check if you'd like to know.
Yeah, how exciting. And this is the first ever.
Well, since the pandemic.
Since the pandemic. We like to check in and see how the two of you are doing for your plans after high school. How's that going?
So far so good. Still working on a few college applications. I love that tonight was the night I was here to mention National Psychology Week because I want to go into psychology. I want to be a criminal psychologist, so kind of another end of it, another branch of it. So yeah, but just plugging away senior year, having a good year, fun year.
And when are those college applications due?
Like December 1st. So gotta create a few tabs, get on there.
And Marissa?
Oh, my college application season has been here since October, I think. I actually just turned in my first application, I think it was Sunday, and I have yet to start on my UC application.
And where did you apply to?
Stanford.
Oh, very good. That's a pretty good one. So, well, best of luck with all that. Other comments from the board? Mr. Nava?
No, I just want to tell Taylor that we saw a real competitive game. The scoring was different, but there was no giving up on Tokay's part. They probably had the best season in 4 years, won and lost. And of course, Lodi is in the playoffs right now, and they're playing Downey at Downey on the first playoff game. McNair, Mr. Freitas and I saw McNair play against Stagg, and the score was like by 1 point at the end. McNair had the ball on the 1 yard line. They threw a snap to the quarterback. He drops it, and the game ends there on 4th down. Not an opportunity to get it in. Very competitive games in that respect. And of course, all you people that are involved in the playoffs, that's the bonus. And it's such an important thing because it creates a lot of student pride, and that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you for recognizing that, Mr. Nava. I don't recall us having so many schools and such a wide disbursement of schools in the playoffs. And very, very exciting time, and congratulations to all the student athletes. Any other comments from the board? Well, thank you very much. I think we have some matters we may ask you about in the meeting, but we also know if we get too late, you do have college applications and homework to get to, and we do understand about that. So thank you very much. Very, very nice reports. The board would also like to take at this time a moment of silence to recognize the passing of Debbie Polinsky. Debbie was a Oakwood typist clerk and with the district for many, many years. Everyone who knew her said how loved she was and what a fixture she was. Her passing is very unfortunate, and her passing she'll be greatly missed by not only the Oakwood family, but all of the Lodi Unified family. So if we could please just take a moment of silence in her remembrance. Very good, thank you. Comments from the public. The board has set aside a 20-minute period to address items not listed on the agenda. Each public speaker shall limit their comments, like all comments through the meeting, to 3 minutes. The board cannot engage in dialogue about public comments because of restrictions placed by the California Brown Act. We received 18 requests. One of the requests is regarding Houston School. That's on tonight's agenda, so I'm going to save that for when we get to that agenda item. With the 18 requests, I would suggest that instead of the 20 minutes, we expand this to 30 minutes. Any objection from the board? Okay, we will expand public comments to 30 minutes. I will call it that it is 7:45, so we will go to 8:15 with the public comments. I can call two, so we can move as quickly as possible and try to get as many of these done. We have Delana Lindsay. Delana, you're first. And Scott Wozniak, you're up second. So, welcome, Delana. If you could adjust that microphone, yeah. Perfect. Thank you.
My purpose for this meeting is to ask the board to hire more security for the high schools, especially Bear Creek and McNair. On October 21st, that was a Thursday, there were 4 fights at McNair and 4 fights at Bear Creek in one day. I came home that day, my daughter had witnessed 3 physical assaults. She said that she witnessed one boy being chased. She said by 20, 30 people. I said, oh, come on, it couldn't have been that many. And she said, Mom, it was like a swarm of bees. She said the boy was running. He was jumping over tables. He was jumping over chairs. I felt so bad for him. He went, the way he ran was a dead end, and I knew he was going to get hurt bad, so I went to class. My daughter's a freshman. She also told me that day, she said, you know what, Mom? She's like, you have to be really careful. You can't cause any drama. You can't say or do anything that upsets anybody, because if you do, they'll get mad at you, they'll text their friends, and they'll all come and chase you down and beat you up. That's not a way that I want my daughter to feel about her campus, Bear Creek. I called the Bear Creek principal to let her know that my daughter had witnessed 2 fights, and then the one that she went to class and did not witness. So there were 3 fights that spoke to the administrator, and she was not aware of one of the fights that my daughter described to her, and she said, "Oh, I didn't know about that one." So there was 4 fights that day at Bear Creek. One of the things also is that my daughter not only witnessed those fights, the 2 that she witnessed in person, and the one, she also, a friend of hers from McNair sent her video of 4 fights. One of those fights was a girl fight where the girls tore each other's tops off. I thought about that a lot. What does that do to our daughters when they're viewing videos of girls fighting and tearing each other's tops off? And what is the long-term effect for our kids viewing 8 videos or a day, from fights that day from 2 different high schools? It's very upsetting. And the other thing I want to talk about is transparency. This district does not post on their website how many fights happen on campus in a month. That is never done. So parents have no clue that all these fights are happening. I want to talk about the following. 1 week later, 7 days later, I heard about another fight. This fight was after school in the parking lot. This boy was apparently kind of one of those nerdy types who likes to play video games, a normal boy. He was attacked by 8 to 15 attackers. Only 2 of them were not wearing masks. Most of these attackers were in hoodies and masks, so they're very hard to identify. When the fights happen, they're surrounded by all these students, all these kids.
Delana, I'm going to have to stop you there. That's your 3 minutes. You and everyone is welcome to email the board. I do know this board reads all emails, so if you want to put the rest of your comments in email, you can send them to Dr. Washer, she'll send them to us, or you can send them directly to us. But thank you for your comments today.
I hope we get some more security officers. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice. Scott? And Dave Andrews, you're up next. Welcome, Scott.
Good evening. First off, kind of a 30-second warning. Again, you still don't have a timer with all that millions of dollars. Good evening, Doctor of Education Washer and the board. I'm with San Joaquin County Liberty Coalition. Board members, what can we, the people you represent, do to help you to help us? Thank you, Mr. Heavily, for attending our town hall that the SJC Liberty Coalition put on 2 weeks ago. We appreciate your willingness to collaborate and come and talk with us. Board, thank you for putting up with us, expressing our thoughts, and presenting you with facts. But tonight is about the true villains in this room. Each day, the enemy is increasingly exposing itself as a lover of tyranny and a hater of freedom. Never get in the way of the enemy when it is destroying itself. In due time, the enemy will completely ensnare itself. Then it will be much easier for the truth to prevail over the lie. Let the enemy do more of our work for us. The true people responsible for this mess is the Lodi Education Association and the California Teachers Association, aka the union, aka the school bully to many. On September 7th, the board meeting, I talked about how the CTA donated almost $2 million to the anti-recall efforts. That's not political. The union has used its power to demand the use of EUA mask, EUA testing, and EUA injections of toxins without the choice for bodily autonomy. My body, my choice. The union's response to me about being discriminated against was, legal actions are outside the scope of LEA's duty of fair representation. We know that vaccinated individuals are able to catch and spread the virus, so why the testing for certain individuals? Is there an agenda behind this? Teachers, staff members, if you are in the union, realize that they are not being neutral. They are not supporting us in good faith and are okay with the work environment discrimination. When the testing gets taken away and when the booster shot gets mandated, the vaccinated become unvaccinated. Will the union stand up for your rights? They are showing their hands right now. Union members, it's time to get out of the union and take away the greed for power and money. The union has overlooked the well-being of students and staff. This is happening across all districts in this state. There are established unions out there that are cheaper and will represent you against discrimination if you're willing to get out of the union. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dave Andrews, welcome Dave. Up next is Luke Rickman. Hi Dave.
Hi,
Welcome to the
Board.
meeting.
Superintendent, thank you very much for your time. I agree, we have such a wonderful district, but there is a serious and significant threat. And like my former speaker, I am a professor at Custom Sugar College and an educator, and I understand the pressure that's come to bear from unions, and I understand the financial and legal pressures that you're often put under and the districts are put under. But Board, in a world that's so very concerned about the environment, pollutants, pesticides, and what goes into our food and water, and the construction materials of our homes, it amazes me what blind trust and allegiance we often have to medicine and pharmacology. As an educated society, we must rely on facts to make sound decisions. If we claim to rely on scientific evidence, then the scientific facts to date from the CDC and the doctors and researchers that develop these vaccines show that contrary to reports and false data and political rhetoric, COVID vaccines does not prevent acquiring or transmitting the COVID or its variants, and mandating students to get vaccinated does not, by any evidence or measurable metric, make our classrooms, our students, our teachers, or our schools any safer. What a vaccination mandate would do is play Russian roulette with our children's futures. We cannot compare one vaccine success to another, and all medical interventions must be thoroughly studied on a case-by-case basis. The COVID vaccine has no long-term data to demonstrate potential physical, neurological, endocrinology, or other effects on our children or potential effects on their offspring. This is not blind fear or hysteria. This is educated concern. A vaccine mandate is like Russian roulette. If this board pulls the trigger, there is a chance that nothing may happen. But there is also a real threat of unintended and unimaginable consequences that cannot be undone. A vaccine mandate is a political overreach and abuse of power and can only be stopped when the people stand up and say enough is enough. These are our children. I know you care about the children in our community and the choices between the parents and the kids. I respectfully request the board and the district legal team support the students, teachers, and parents it represents, not the political pressure, the financial pressure, or the unions, and not pursue a vaccine mandate. Thank you very much for your time.
Luke Rickman, welcome Luke. Let's go Brandon. Let's go. God, you got me. They warned us at the meeting about that, so way to go. Luke Rickman.
Yes, hi. So this is my first time speaking here. I would just like to start by saying thank you for giving me the time to speak today. I would like to address the mask mandates first. My wife and I have 3 children in Lodi, and we find it hard for our kids to connect with their teachers because they can't see and express facial expressions. Our 2nd grader says that if she tells the teacher that she can't tell if the, all right, yeah, I'm a little gibbered up here, but 2nd grader says
You're doing fine, Luke.
she can't tell if her teacher is smiling at her. Our child has always been very social, but her teacher says she doesn't participate when called on, and she is really shy and reserved in class. Our 8th grader says that if his mask touches the tip of his nose, even though still covered, he's reprimanded. He gets highly embarrassed in class. even being called out, though he is still complying with the mask mandates. Our oldest daughter, who has been in band for all 4 years of high school, states that band feels more like a chore because of trying to comply with the mask mandates and social distancing, even while playing the instruments. Band used to bring our daughter joy. Now it's just become a chore for her. Children are also forced to wear masks in PE as well as during recess. Our children have expressed how hard it is for them to breathe during these activities, and I'm sure that most parents probably feel the same. Our 13-year-old son has asthma and is still forced to comply with these mandates. A part of education is creating a bond with them. All of our children are being robbed of that because of these mandates. Children deserve the right to experience school for all that it has to offer. They all should have the opportunity to create bonds with their teachers, classmates, and friends. Kind of going on to the vaccines, myocarditis and pericarditis, which are two different types of heart inflammation, have affected 1,700 people under the age of 30. CDC states that 558 children ages 0 to 17 have passed away from the COVID-19 as of 10/27/21. The CDC website states deaths reported as caused by the vaccines 9,143. The information shows that children are more at risk of getting myocarditis or dying from the vaccine than they are of dying from COVID-19. Our hearts truly go out to these families who lost these children. I could not imagine.
Luke, that's your third minute. So thank you very much for those comments, and feel free to Gail Barnett. Gail, you're up. And Elizabeth Davis. You'll be after Gail.
Hi. First off, let me make it very clear. It's no to the vaccine mandates for any kid under 18. If you want to get your kid vaccinated, go for it. But no to the mandate. So let's start with some facts, not those compromised by the FDA, the CDC. They're complete nonsense. The American Academy of Pediatrics concluded children infrequently transmit COVID to adults, which is the big scare. Why everybody has to be masked up in the schools, because kids are killing adults. That is not true. There are hundreds of studies that concur. You can look this up. The American Academy of Pediatrics is easy to Google and find this information. Only 2,200 children in a few months were part of this trial by the FDA, and they are basing a decision on that. Oh, and let's be sure to tell everybody, the data, they couldn't find enough kids sick enough to do enough trials. What we do know, according to the VAERS report last week, 10,000, this was everyone, 10,956 myocarditis incidents, 10,465. Oh, let's have a good time with Bell's palsy. And, oh, by the way, 17,619 people are dead. How is that acceptable? How is any of those facts acceptable? Pfizer won't say how many of the 2,200 in the trials have had side effects. Well, why not? If it's such a great vaccine. How dare the FDA panel say they are not going to learn how safe the vaccine is until they start giving it to the kids. Well, that's just the way it is. Well, in my opinion, no, it's not. And don't use the kids. Oh, they've all had to get vaccines for lots of years to get into school. This is no different. Well, I'm sorry to say it is. Those vaccines for measles and smallpox, etc., have had 7 to 10 years of study, not a few months. by the compromised FISA. And lastly, there is no emergency for kids. They're not dying in the schools. They're not dying in the street. A rate of 0.0007. That is not a national emergency. If that were the case, you better not let your kids ride a bike in the street, or let alone play baseball, because they're going to die. Kids are not government lab rats. This board does not and should help others decide that they are not going to pursue a mandate. Experimental
Very good.
shots
Okay, Gail. Thank you very much for your comments. Elizabeth Davis, and I have Debbie Wheeler up next. Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi.
Welcome to our meeting.
Hi, this is my first board meeting. I would like to introduce myself. I'm actually a family nurse practitioner. I was a pediatric nurse at Southern Memorial Hospital in Sacramento before I was a nurse practitioner. I also have a degree in psychology with a minor in biology, and I was also a suicide prevention counselor for 2 years at the Suicide Prevention Hotline in Sacramento. So I have a unique perspective on this. I do have children, 2 of them at Lodi High School. You've heard a lot of data, and I can't disagree with those. It's not a very popular position where I'm at in my profession right now. So I was very hesitant to come up and talk to you, to be honest with you. But I have to say, I cannot in good conscience, and I know you're in a tough spot. I genuinely feel for you. But we have to do something. We are not perfect as medical providers, and there's been lots of cases in the past where we know that we've recommended things medically that have turned out to be deleterious to the population, and I think this is going to be one of those times. 2 of my 3 children have had 2 friends commit suicide in the last 60 days. And I'm not going to go over a lot of the medical things other than to understand that please understand myocarditis, because I know it keeps getting referenced. The myocarditis is different in vaccine-related myocarditis than the naturally occurring myocarditis. They're not comparable. The vaccine myocarditis is significantly worse, and it actually can lead to heart failure and some other things. But anyway, just another thing as far as the mental health, because a lot of people really have been doing their homework as far as the medical part, and I can't disagree with what's been said, to be honest with you. I've studied this ad nauseum because my patients rely on me to give them accurate information, and I've tried to do that. But according to the CDC, one of the things I thought was interesting as far as the mental health capacity of this is that there's been an increase of 24% of ER mental health visits between 5 and 11 years old, and that's heartbreaking. There's been an increase of 31% in ER mental health visits between 12 and 17-year-olds. So we've got a real problem on our hands, and I would like to figure out how to partner with you to give you any information. I'd be happy to meet confidentially with any of you just to discuss the studies, just to go over what the accurate data is. I have a lot of patients who are in the healthcare field themselves. They're scared to speak out. And I'm real not comfortable doing it right now myself, but I feel like I have a moral obligation to do it at this point. So I just confidentially, and I'd be happy just to go, just some studies, just to go over with you. And again, do what you can. Stand with us if you can. As we need you. We really need you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for coming. Ty Brockmeyer is up next, and Debbie, welcome to our meeting.
Hi, I'm Debbie Wheeler. I was a school district employee for Stockton for 31 years. I moved to Lodi as a single mom to have a better education for my children because Lodi was a really good school district. I've now, because of everything that's going on, have pulled my child from Lodi Unified and I'm homeschooling her. I refuse to subject her to this so-called mandate. As her parent, it's my job to protect her, and if you think I'm letting anyone put anything in her body that would potentially harm her, you're rudely mistaken. These are our precious babies that deserve every opportunity to be successful, thriving citizens. What you're doing to them by making them wear masks, using scare tactics to instill fear and bullying children, and this is happening, because they pull down their masks so they can breathe, is despicable, and you should be ashamed. Staff members should be ashamed. I will not return my child to this district unless you stand up and fight for our children.
Emily Mahoney, you're after Ty. Ty, welcome to our meeting.
Hi. I'd like to start with Galt School District as well as Valley Springs. Both rejected this medical tyranny, and with our neighboring towns stepping up and doing the right thing and making the right choice, not a requirement. And with that being said, I would like to call on the board members to have an open session regarding mask and vaccine mandates as well as exemptions, because parents, teachers deserve answers. I have been informed that a couple of your positions are going to be voted on here in the near future. So with that being said, you can choose to make the right choices y'all are making and roll the dice on election day. Or you can do the right thing, give parents the choice. It is not your right to force an experimental, still an emergency use authorization jab, and the vaccine that is FDA approved is not even available. Who takes responsibility for the adverse reactions? And I'm sure we're all wondering what happened to that $119 million received for COVID. Where did that money go? As I see and many others see, it's a big money grab. So I'm guessing that when and if you reject this, there won't be a relief package. But is that money more important than our children and our teachers? Some part of y'all have to feel this is wrong on so many levels. In the end, you will all have to answer to the one that I feel most people forgot about. God. God has arranged your meeting, my meeting. Nothing can stop the inevitable. So regardless of our medical vaccination or safety driving, when he calls you, you will go home. So with that being said, let's go Brandon. Have a nice night.
You got me, Ty. All right, Danielle Dole, you're up next. Emily, welcome to our meeting.
Hi. My speech tonight is mostly towards the unions who are supposed to be representing teachers and staff. Unions like CTA and CICA. I know that there are others, but those are the only two big ones that I can think of right now. And CTA is actually the largest union in California. I would like to know one thing from you guys. Where are you? Where have you been? How many speeches is it going to take from us to get you to stand up for our rights? Can you please help us? You are supposed to be representing each of us, regardless of if we give you our money or not, which we all know is something you have a lot of. Why don't you do something about this? Has there been even one union employee or leader in the union who has stood up for our rights? I really want to be proven wrong about this. Truly, I do. Prove me wrong and speak up prove me wrong and speak up at a meeting for our freedom. Prove me wrong and stand up to these mandates, which again are not laws. Speaking of laws, do you know that it is illegal to give medical advice to someone when you do not have a medical license? Practicing medicine, which includes giving medical advice without a medical license, goes against California Penal Code 2052 and the California Mask Choice Law. I now have 2 letters reprimanding me of disobeying safety rules and regulations, and how I personally am impacting the learning environment negatively towards the students and staff members in the classroom for not wearing my mask, because I choose to not wear a mask anymore. I don't think I mentioned this at the last meeting when I spoke, but I was a student for the district, 1st through 12th grade. And when I was a student in this district, I never once was called to the principal's office. And now as a staff member, I am being asked to attend these private meetings with my principal so that I can get a warning after warning about what exactly. I asked my principal to give me the LUSD protocol that is being used for staff who don't comply with the mandates, and you know what I was told? I'm not going to answer that question right now. I was told that this is progressive discipline. So does this mean I'm going to be given another warning? Does this mean I have 2 or 3 or 5 more meetings until I'm put on unpaid leave? Can anyone answer this question? Union employees, this is what is happening to the people you are supposed to be standing up for. Stand up for us. It is your duty. Do better. We are counting on you to not let us down. Thank you.
Alex Alafaris, you're up next. Hi Danielle, welcome to our meeting.
Good evening, President Freitas, Dr. Washer, members of the board. I come to you tonight as a parent, pleading you to take a stand for medical freedom. While many things are beyond our control, taking this stance is not. I ask that you, as a board, direct Dr. Washer to write a resolution stating that Lodi Unified wishes to not enforce the vaccine mandate. Several school districts within our state have taken this action because they realize that taking part in this vaccine is and should remain a deeply personal decision. The coercion and discrimination surrounding this entire issue must stop, for it is leading us to very dark places. I come to you tonight asking you to understand that I am not an anti-vaxxer. Myself and both my boys are vaccinated to the full extent for everything with the exception of COVID-19. I believe in the existing vaccines and their efficacy. I am uncomfortable with the COVID-19 vaccine for reasons that we could endlessly debate. This debate would not change the fact that, if enforced without exemptions granted, I would have no choice but to unenroll my children from a district I've been proud to say they've been educated through. I would be forced to say that instead of dedicating my talents to teaching music to students in Lodi Unified, I will instead direct my talents toward providing an excellent homeschool experience for my boys. I come to you tonight asking you to take a stand. It is well understood that this may not affect the end game and that it may not prevent the enforcement of the vaccine. However, it is also well understood that by failing to take this stand, you are endorsing overreaching government, coercion, and discrimination right here in Lodi.
Thank you, Danielle. Lisa Wilkins, you're up next. And Alex, welcome to our meeting.
Hi, how you doing?
Very good. How are you?
Ferris. I'm a substitute teacher at Lodi Unified. First of all, I will not consent and I do not comply with any vaccine mandate. I will not take it. And you already have a shortage. You already know there's a shortage. Substitute teachers, even teachers and staff. Matter of fact, one school, there was not even someone to even clean the classroom. But let me be aware that Fauci is a total fraud. I've been talking about this. The gain of function research in the Wuhan lab has been exposed. He's been having a lot of exchanges with Senator Rand Paul. He's been referred to criminal referral, and calls for his arrest are growing daily. It's not just one senator, it's many calling for his arrest. And it's going to happen. So my thing is, you need to stand up. There's a doctrine of lesser magistrates. These are books that were written years ago in Europe. Of course, they're not taught in schools. But it's about the lesser magistrate, you guys, standing up to a governor. Back in the day, they had kings. And that's where we had our freedom. Because there were people that stood up for freedom in a sea of tyranny. And that's why we have the freedoms we have today. But it seems like we're going back into authoritarianism. Look in Australia. My friends can't even leave Australia, even if they had to escape. People are escaping. And Fauci, he's a total fraud. You guys need to wake up. Pass a resolution, just like Galt Unified, just like Valley Springs. And stand up. Because courage is contagious. You know, it takes a lot for people like me and others to stand up and say, look, I'm not going to consent and comply. There's plenty of other jobs out there. I could always leave the state of California. I got that option. Many don't. I do have that option in my table. Because I was at once considering becoming a teacher, and with these vaccine mandates in the state of California, I don't know if I want to right now. I wanted to share a quote by Samuel Adams. I think it was Samuel Adams, or one of our founding fathers. He says, no people will tamely surrender their liberties, nor can any be easily subdued when knowledge is diffused and virtue is preserved. These are quotes that are founding fathers. There's many other quotes I could have taken out a quote from Samuel Adams. It will freak you out. Of course, they're not taught in universities and school district. I wonder why. We shouldn't have to be in compliance, okay? Disobedience is about freedom. Coercion is not freedom. Start standing up. You have the support here. What are you waiting for?
All right, thank you, Alex. Lisa Wilkins?
Good evening, Dr. Washer, President Freitas, members of the board. I have to say I admire the protesters' passion, but the passion is misdirected. They should be protesting and talking to their state legislatures who have the authority to either impose or negate vaccine mandates rather than the school board who does not have that authority. Instead, what I'd like to talk about and what I think they should be protesting about is issues that directly impact children in the classroom. For example, right now we have, I have heard that we have like 40 bus driver openings. I know this impacts students because there's no such thing as field trips. Students are often late to school because the bus routes are impacted and we don't have enough bus drivers. I know last year we lost around 20 special education teachers, and they left along with many speech and language pathologists, several TK teachers, and school psychologists. Because Lodi USD is so out of compliance with IDEA that it is surprising that the district isn't being sued. I think the fact that Lodi USD cannot attract and retain the school personnel needed to make our schools a safe and engaging place for students should be more of a reason to protest, not vaccine mandates that the school board cannot impact. I, for one, do believe in vaccines. I, for one, have done some research on mRNA vaccines way back before we have the technology to do them. We didn't have PCR, we didn't have CRISPR, we didn't have a lot of the tools. We didn't have lipid nanoencapsulation, which makes this possible. But I know that the technology is there. We have used it in the past. And by the way, the vaccines for people 12 and older are no longer under emergency use authorization. They are fully FDA and CDC authorized.
Okay. All right, we went a little bit long, but that's going to close our public comment. I'm sorry we didn't get to everyone tonight. What I would suggest, if individuals are going to leave at this time, we'll take a 5-minute break to accommodate that. Also, if you weren't able to speak tonight, as always, please feel free to email the board, and if not, we'll be seeing you in 2 weeks. So why don't we take a quick 5-minute recess, please.
Can you please wait? I really need a call. Yeah, if you can pass a resolution. Yeah, I mean, we need to start coming to the I said this after school last night. Yeah, I know. Okay. No, I like it. So you're like, I get it. Yeah. Well, anyway, so last night when they were saying
Hi, Courtney. How you doing?
Yeah, and it's like they take her down. So you know she's good. I'll send you
They didn't have the like 6 months we had a free vote. You get to sit next goes off or whatever.
Okay, thank you everyone for that quick 5-minute break. Moving on with our agenda, we have consent agenda A. Does any members of the board wish to have any items pulled from consent agenda A?
A2 and A4.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Does any members of the public wish to have any items pulled?
A1.
Very good. Wishes of the board for the remainder of consent agenda A?
Approve.
Thank you, Mr. Neely, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Knaxet, for your second. We'll wait for Mr. Freitas to log in. And we'll go ahead and call for the vote. Oh, student vote. Students! So good to see you here. Can we have your vote as to the rest of consent agenda A, please? Your advisory vote? Thank you, students. Thank you, Mr. Nava, for reminding me of that. And call for the board vote. And the remainder of consent agenda A passes 7-0. Items pulled. Item A1, Ms. Orga. Shell?
Good evening, President. Good evening, President Freitas, members of the board, Dr. Washer. On this contract list, you'll see jump into math as a contract. Do we know how many students or how many school sites will be serviced by that $201,000 plus dollars?
Dr. Solly? Please, thank you.
Good evening, President Freitas, members of the board, Dr. Washer. There are 21 schools to be serviced. They're Title I schools. We're utilizing parent education funds. They have a capacity of 320 parents to attend, and we've been working with them for about 5-6 years, and the enrollment continues and completion of the training continues to increase from, it was about 150 a couple years ago. It dipped a little bit during the COVID year, but actually not much. And we're now, last year actually was a COVID year, and we did it virtually. I think there were 250 participants completing. So this year we scheduled for an enrollment of up to 320. That's actually, we could ask for more parents to attend, but they're maxed out on staffing issues.
Very nice. Thank you, Dr. Solly. Shelley, anything else?
Yes, just that we do have adult programs at Lincoln Tech Academy, and I hope that we encourage the public of those programs for members learning English and other services that our adult parents could enroll in, and would love to see that under our umbrella as a district rather than contract out. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. What are the wishes of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve item A1 on the routine agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nava, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Neely, for a second. Other comments from the board, Mr. Everly?
No.
Student vote?
Yay. Yay.
Thank you, students. And we'll go ahead and call for the board vote on item A1. Item A1, contracts list, passes 7-0. Item A2, Mr. Porter, warrant report.
I pulled this because I have a conflict of interest.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Porter.
Chairman, I move we approve.
Mr. Donovan, thank you for your motion. Thank you, Vice President McFarland, for your second. We'll go ahead and ask for the student vote.
Yay?
Thank you, students, for those 2 yay votes, and we'll call for the board vote. And item A2 passes 6-0 with one abstention. Item A4, Mr. Porter.
Yeah, I wanted to take a look at it and ask some questions before voting on this. And I believe I was looking at financial impact, and I believe I was looking at number 3 under there. It talks about realign Valley Robotics Academy budget to include 1.125 campus security. Now, I do know that we are short campus security at our high schools, and I was wondering, is this normal for the school of Valley Robotics side to have their own campus security, and do they need one of 1.25? Even don't they have a vice principal as well?
Mr. Khan?
Mr. Porter, members of the board, we recently added a vice principal to the independent study side of the house. Independent Study Digital Academy, also spilling into Valley Robotics assistance as well, but not dedicated to Valley Robotics Academy. We did also increase campus security FTE to all of the comprehensive high schools, giving them one more FTE each. As specific questions to Valley Robotics for this, I'd have to defer to Mr. Fawn or Mr. McGregor.
And I can provide some budget information, but I'll defer to the program or to Mr. McGregor.
Well, my question is do we need this position? When we just heard from one of the parents in the audience about concerns of both there and there, this could resource could be used elsewhere.
I can provide some budget background.
Yeah, and this is for a campus supervisor at Valley Robotics?
That is correct.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I can tell in the fib if I said I was aware of that. I was not aware of the
Is it
request.
possible for me to pull that part out, the Robert's rules of orders on this? Because I just cannot vote for that part of it when we don't seem to know why or what happened.
I may add some budget.
1, 2, and 4, of course.
Because, I'm sorry, Mr. Porter, members of the board, because it is a high school campus without any campus supervisor, all of our high schools have some sort of support. That is a large campus, not just with Valley Robotics, but also with Henderson and Independence on the same grounds. So there are some unique issues on just the facility side of it because of the way those 3 programs are set up. So is there a need? Of course there's a need. There's a need in all schools for that type of thing.
Is there a need? Have they had problems with?
As Dr. Washer said, not the demographics, but the physical structure or layout of the 3 schools that are on that campus certainly creates a need for supervision. And again, I apologize, I was not aware of the request. I was aware of the comprehensive high schools, but I was not aware of the Valley Robotics request.
I just question that, given that we have such issues at the high school level. And what is the numbers of Valley Robotics total students? I know it's a large campus there, but how many students total do we have, i.e. high school?
For Valley Robotics,
Yeah.
total 200.
High school? High school?
200 and some. They've got 3 grade levels. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Because I know we expanded into
Call it 60 kids.
60? Okay, I have a hard time with this. I really think it's unnecessary. That's my personal opinion.
Mr. President, may I add some budget information?
Yes, Mr. Cox.
So each site is allocated budgets based on the number of enrollment that they have. This is where the site chose to spend its money. This isn't an added FTE.
Maybe you could explain that again, Mr. Collins?
So when Director 3 of Budgets, Ms. Andrus, allocates site budgets annually, she does it, it's all predicated on enrollment, at least for the unrestricted side. Of course, the title money, special ed money goes to where it needs to go. But each site is allocated a prorated share of budget based on how many students they have. And then cabinet allows each site principal to decide where they need to invest that capital at this.
Mr. Everly?
Yeah, even though it says Valley Robotics, from your explanation, it's actually for all 3 of those campuses on the site. Yes or no?
Mr. Cotter?
I would say yes. And you've got 40-some Henderson kids in a different program, the 200 Valley Robotics, the littles up to the 11th graders this year. And then any number of 180, 190 independent study kids are on campus during the course of the day. At any given point, you could have 400, 450 kids on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to negate the fact that Valley Robotics needs a campus security. I think every school should have security. I'm having a problem wrapping my head around allotting it, even though it's through their budgeting, when we've got comprehensive high schools that have thousands of students that would kill for another campus security. So am I missing something here? I don't want to take it away from Valley Robotics, but I think we're comparing the two. And from this board member's position, I feel that we're taking it away from someone else to give it to Valley Robotics. Am I fair in saying that? That when you look at the 2 of them together?
Mr. Farr, members of the board, it's not taking away because this is Valley Robotics' budget. So if they don't spend it this way, they will have to regroup and spend it another way. So it's not an FTE that's been given to Valley Robotics. It's they're making a decision on how to use the funds that have been allocated to the site.
I think I understand that. I understand that portion of it. My concern is that I think every one of our high schools would, if they have the funds, they would probably want another campus security.
We gave them one without using their funds. All 4 comprehensive high schools got an additional full FTE that did not come from their school site funds.
And so this is off topic, but are they comfortable enough with what they have? Because I'm having a hard time not comparing the two. And Valley Robotics campus seems like a sleepy, really nice campus compared to some of our more combative high schools. And so that's where my struggle is with this, but Valley Robotics is taking the heat on this, and I don't want them to.
Right. I would say that perhaps that's a separate topic. That if the comprehensive high schools need in addition to the one that has already been allocated, that would be you could give them another one. I mean, and it wouldn't come from their funds.
Got it.
And you said, are they comfortable with where they are? I would probably guess that the principals would make very good use of more FTE campus supervisors.
Thank you.
Very good. So it's not an either or, it's a win-win for everybody.
This would not be instead of additional campus soups at other schools. If the board, if that is an interest of the board, we will add additional campus soups at the comprehensive high schools.
Thank you, Dr. Washer. All right. Other questions from the board? Mr. Porter?
Yeah, my concern is not so much that this is a requirement, but they're competing. They're going to compete. If the high schools need more campus security, where would you rather work? I'd go to the URA. If we have and the high schools need, again, it's not so much, okay, we gave each high school one. Some schools need more based on events. If you got a crack in the dam, one's bigger than the other, you're going to need more work to repair the big crack than the little crack. So the idea of just giving one to all says, oh, we solved the problem, doesn't solve the problem. We have issues at the high schools. We need to provide better safety. Children should go to school in a safe environment, especially at the high school level. If we open this up, that'll compete against the other high schools that maybe we, the board, will increase campus security. So it sounds like to me that this hasn't been thought through, meaning you're not aware of it, Mr. Creator, Mr. Khan's not aware of it. It was in the budget. Where's the need? Do they have other needs with that money that could be used? Or is this the need that they think is really, really important? You understand what I'm kind of saying here? 'Cause I know what the high schools need.
Sure, and that's a conversation that we are engaged in currently. We talked last week, the secondary principals regarding safety at all schools.
Right.
And that's an ongoing conversation. As Dr. Washer mentioned, we want to make sure the students are safe. That's where education starts. Kids and staff need to feel safe as they come to school. As I understand what Mr. Khan said, that was a budgetary decision that Dr. Khan made. They felt that it was necessary. And if that's the way they want to choose to spend their money based upon the needs of their school, I understand that, and I apologize for not being aware of that. But that's the honest truth. I was not aware of that need, but I can certainly speak to her and report back to y'all.
Other comments of the board, Vice President McFarland?
I just want to make sure when we're looking that we're talking about secondary school, this is in no way we're talking about elementary because this is a secondary school. So we're not sliding elementary schools for security. It's in the arena of secondary. And if we are talking about secondary, I want to make sure that we're discussing middle school and that middle school also additional staff, just so that.
Right.
Other comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I agree that the security is needed at all campuses. I understand, and the need assessment that robotic has shows to get that security there. And I think that it's an understanding and it's a fact there that campus includes independent study, Henderson, robotics, and I think there's another one there that we have. I'm not sure, but all that area is going to be probably patrolled and secured by that supervisor, not only at the robotic area, but around the other areas. So being that, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item A4 on routine agenda A.
Thank you, Mr. Nava, for your motion. Other comments from the board?
I agree with Mr. Nova. I don't think this item impacts the other schools. This is simply about Valley Robotics, so I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Knaxet, for the motion. Other comments from the board? Comments from the public? Student vote?
Yay.
Yay.
Thank you, students, for vote. Go ahead and call for the board vote. And item A4 passes 6-1. Consent agenda B, student discipline cases. Students do not vote in student discipline cases. And what are the wishes of the board?
Chairman, I move we approve discipline cases.
Thank you, Mr. Neely, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Knaxet, for your second. Like we said, students not vote. Any comments from the public? Comments from the board? Call for the board vote. And consent agenda B passes 7-0. Personnel matters, Mr. McKilligan.
Mr. President, routine personnel matters are presented for consideration.
Very nice. Comments, thank you, Mr. McKilligan, for your presentation. Comments from the board?
Move to approve. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Knaxet, for your motion. Thank you, Mr. Heverly, for your second. Comments from the public?
President Freitas, members of the board, as you see on the personnel agenda item, we are gaining 2 special ed teachers. Unfortunately, we do still have some holes, but I'd like your attention to how many of our new teachers are being moved to probationary. And we just asked, since there was some confusion last year, that is there a way to notify them that their status has changed personally? Because many of them didn't realize they had moved to a probationary status from temporary. So if that could be done, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We have a motion from,
Can we answer that question?
They're called personally and notified every year.
Okay. All right. Good enough?
thank you, Mr. McKilligan. Thank you, Ms. Neely, for your comment. We have a motion and a second. No further comments from the board or from the public. We'll go ahead and students not vote on personnel matters. We'll call for the board vote. And personnel matters pass is 7-0. Report items. Board, we have two members of the Lodi Police Department here. I believe they, like our student reps, could be free to leave. Do we have any objections to that? I hear no objections, so we do have a 3-hour minimum. 5 minutes of 7 minutes away. Very good. Thank you, officers. Very good to see you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you very much. You have the choice. I think they're with us for a bit.
Free to stay, free to go.
Very good. Thank you so very, very much.
Thank you for your reports. Nice job.
All right, we'll see you soon. All right, we have a report item tonight, the update on Houston school enrollment. And here with us is our favorite assistant superintendent, Neil Young. So, how are you, Neil?
I am well. President Freitas, members of the board, before you this evening I have a report item. It's an update on Houston Elementary School. I'll provide you some information about that school. Periodically, we look at enrollment of the elementary school sites, and we wanted to provide you information about Houston School. As we are pulling up that report item, I wanted to bring your attention specifically to the executive summary of information for you to review and consider. Houston School is a K-8 school, and currently, at the time of this report, 144 students in our general education. You will see the cost in front of you for our certificated, classified, and administration. Whether or not you're aware, our K-6 program, other than our kindergarten class, our students in 1st through 6th grade are in combination classes. There's one 7th grade teacher and one 8th grade teacher, classroom teacher. And there are certainly some limited opportunities for our 7th and 8th grade students at Houston School because of the small number of students. And I certainly know that our K-8 teachers at Houston School are working very hard, knowing they are working at our middle school level, covering all subject areas, or majority thereof. And at our K-6 sites, they are, for 1st through 6th grade, they are covering 2 grade levels, even though I know our kindergarten teacher is able to provide support when the kindergarten students go home. So I know they're working very hard, but there are certainly some limitations there that we want you to be aware of, but we want you to consider some different options that you might weigh and look at. So you can see those there before you. In this report, you also find some historical enrollment data for you, and that looks at from 1819 until now. That's our student enrollment for your consideration, and that is our regular education. There is one SDC class as well that has 10 students, but this is our Houston regular education enrollment. And then you'll also see the staffing, so you understand what that looks like specifically. And that is our classroom FTE at Houston School. And so before you are some options for discussion for you to consider looking at Houston School. And we would certainly say one of those options is to look at our current structure that we have at Houston, knowing that they are just completing their SIPSA process. which is part of the responsibility of a Title I school site to utilize those funds, and that is certainly input from teachers, classified staff, and parents as part of that school site council. And as well, we may want to look at some potential options, some focus areas. It was, even though I was sitting right outside and it felt like I was on the bench like elementary school, I did hear some great things happening at Lodi Middle School. And so we would want to explore the possibility, if interested, of how we could utilize STEM, how we might look at how visual and performing arts might be a benefit to bolstering what is happening at Houston School. We would even look at what are the things happening in our high schools, specifically Lodi High School, some career pathway opportunities for students. We know they have a robust ag program. We could possibly see how we might team up together, or perhaps the Apple Academy, and we could build some relationships there, and that's just a couple to consider. You may have some other ideas that we haven't broached or considered, and we want to, bring those as some possibilities from the board. Some additional pieces you want to look at, and that we could work with the school site might be an interest in additional certificated and/or classified staff. We know currently there's some ESSER money, and there's possibilities that we might consider to extend the day. That is certainly something we would have to speak to teachers and classified staff at the school site, because I know they are tired at the end of the day, and that might require some additional pieces. But we could look at additional hours. We could look at the possibility, if the board is interested in bringing back some ideas with adding staff to support the program at Houston. We might even need to consider some flexible student grouping throughout the day. There are certainly limitations. We know the SIPS plan is a very important guiding document in providing not only core instruction, but additional supports. And again, for you to consider, maybe you have some different ideas that we haven't looked at and provided you here. And then finally, explore attendance area boundary adjustments for Houston students. That is something that you could consider as well, that we could bring back to you. I know Houston sits on the northeast side of our boundary areas. It's a broad area, and so those are some options for you to consider. If we were to look at the next slide, that actually provides you some additional information that you would consider in this report, and those are surrounding school sites. One might argue Lawrence School is closer than Woodbridge. However, it has a larger population of students and includes a significant number of preschool programs at that site. So as you're looking at additional schools nearby, we provided you Victor School and its location, some of those restraints, the programs that are offered at Victor should you change boundary areas of your students. And that includes Woodbridge School, Lockford School, and Millswood Middle School as some additional sites as well. And finally, knowing that Joe Cerna shares the campus and utilizes classroom space at the Houston site, there are limitations with that relationship, in that it is a biliteracy program, a dual immersion program, and you just couldn't put students in older grades into a program that they haven't come up through. But we wanted to provide that as well, because there are certainly opportunities for kindergarten students should they have an interest, and we would have to weigh whether or not that's possible at first. But beyond that, that might be difficult if you were to consider changing those attendance boundaries. So this is information for you to consider, and really what we're asking is direction on any next steps you are interested in.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, Neil, just have a question. All those combo classes, to me, are not very good as a parent. How do the parents of the Houston school feel about these combo classes? Seems like we're not getting a fair shake on education with that, because when you have two levels like that, it's very difficult. I know they get help from the kindergarten, but that's not enough. I don't know if you're accomplishing the educational objective with those combo classes. I don't like combination classes because it just disrupts the whole system and there's no continuity going on. So have you surveyed the parents on this?
At this point, we are bringing this report to you, and that is certainly something you as a board could ask us to do and get some input from families regarding their child's educational experience in what appears to be a majority of combo classes, yes.
I think that's one of the ideas that we have. You know, parents are very important. I know at one time, when you think about closing schools, that's a big thing for parents. That's a whole new thing, you know, because they're so used to it. Their children have gone there for 8, you know, all of them, and they have attended that, so they're very attached to that. So that's the reason the parents, I need to find out the parent involvement and how they feel about this with the shortcomings that we have with the combo classes. Thank you.
Very nice. Thank you, Mr. Nova. I think Dr. Washer, did you want to add something to the presentation?
Ms. Nova, members of the board, absolutely anything that we would pursue or even look at, we would do in consultation with the community, the staff and the parents, of course. In the past, when we have brought the issue up about Houston enrollment and concern about combination classes, what we have heard from parent voice is that they like the setting of Houston school, and that outweighs anything negative with combination classes. I'm sure there are parents here that are intending to speak to you and give their own opinion. That's what we've heard in the past. That was part of one of the options that Neil presented, the additional staffing, knowing that there will continue to be combination classrooms with this level of enrollment. We just can't get around that. We could do something if the board were interested in funding more staffing at Houston, do something with paraprofessionals in every class, or something of that, team teaching, or something of that nature to try to mitigate what Mr. Nava was expressing, the concerns he was expressing a little bit. So that's why those options were up there, knowing that they will continue to be combination classes. And in this particular school, unlike any other, students are in a combination class probably every year, if not most years. So those were some of those options of additional staffing that could maybe help with that.
And my understanding is 7 and 8 are not combination classes, but 5, 6 is a combination, 3, 4 is a combination, and then K1, 2 is a combination?
No, currently we have one kindergarten teacher at Houston, and then we have a combination class, which is a first, second, a third, fourth, a fifth, sixth combo, and there is one 7th grade teacher, one 8th grade classroom teacher.
And the 7th and 8th grade are not inconsistent with our other class sizes.
I'm sorry, say that again, Mr. Freitas.
Yeah, that was some legal speak. The 36 and the 27, that's not inconsistent with other class sizes for 7th and 8th grade.
That is correct, Mr. Freitas. The difference here is the one teacher in 7th grade is teaching all subjects, as opposed to Millswood, where there are single subject credential teachers teaching their subject specific matter. Same thing with 8th grade. The 8th grade teacher is teaching the subject.
But the 13 for kindergarten is pretty low by district standards. And we don't have a TK program
Not Houston.
at Houston. That's not available. Thank you for clarifying that. Other comments from the board? Mr. Knexit?
Well, along the same vein, combos are probably the poorest choice. I can see the necessity for it as it stands right now, but in addition to talking to the parents, I would like to have the teachers that work in that environment, for them to kind of report back to you and to us what they think about the combo experience. Some of those folks have probably been doing this for quite a while, and they get it down cold. But anyway, I think we need to have their input in the effectiveness of what they're actually doing, and if we need to have another solution other than combo classes.
Thank you, Mr. Knexit. Other comments from the board? Mr. Neely?
Thank you, Mr. Freitas. Yeah, combo classes aren't usually the best way of doing things. I went to a country school as well, and I had combo class every year I was there. That went through 8th grade too, first through 8th.
And look how you turned out.
Yeah, well, don't look there, okay? But my wife actually did a long-term sub job out of Houston, and she had a 4-5 combo, I think, that year. And it went really well. And there's one thing that, Gary, that you said that is true. These people are experts in doing it. You know, they do a great job. You know, you go out to Houston, and it's a neat little school. Okay, not very cost efficient, but it's a neat little school. All right, and you know, Neil, I've got some questions on this. I'm going to ask you about it, but and I appreciate this information right here. But if you're suggesting that we should pick one of the alternatives out of what you've done here, I think you're off base on this. You guys need to go back, you need to talk to the parents, you need to talk to the staff, you need to get the cabinet together, we need to talk about that, and then you guys bring us something. These are the proposals that we have, okay? And this is how they would work. This is a big decision and something that, you know, this is the very, very first step, all right? We can use this information to go on, but you guys are going to have to fill some more in. Let's bring up that slide with the attendance numbers, if you would, please. All right. The 7th and 8th grade there, you go from, well, here, 6th grade here, 19, and then you go to 33 here. Where are we picking those up at? Are those coming from Victor?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there is not another 7th or 8th grade teacher? Didn't we have a math specialist out there at one time?
Yes, we did.
Who's a math specialist?
Yes, that was me.
All right. So
we didn't recognize you with your mask on. You have to forgive us. So
how many teachers do we have that are teaching 7th and 8th grade? Is it just 2 or is it 3 or more? Do you guys like platoon or something?
I can explain to you exactly what teachers are teaching what,
Can we
but I
get-
don't want it to come out of my 3 minutes of time I plan on talking to you.
sorry, Mr. Neely, you were outvoted. So.
This is, but this is kind of what it gets me here is that, I don't know, we're at 2nd grade here, we're at 15, and then the next year, 3rd grade, you would think it'd be somewhere 15 or 8.
No, that's not. You have
Well, I
to
don't know,
look,
those are the numbers I'm getting.
you have to go diagonally down the list to see the next
So
year.
anyway, we might want to re-look at those, are they accurate or not? We need to
They're not.
find that out.
They're not.
All right, very good.
But we do have 124 out there, that is accurate, right?
No.
As of the date that we put this together, that's what the number was.
Okay, all right.
Very nice. Thank you, Mr. Neely.
I'm not done.
Oh. You said all right. You said all right 3 times. So I know when my wife
That
tells me
means
all
all
right
right
3 times, it means
something else comes in.
yeah. The
Listen
phone
up.
call's over.
All right, 4 times.
4 times.
So, you understand what I'm talking about, Neil, about bringing us some solid suggestions,
Yes.
okay? And so that's what I want to see, is this is what we want, yeah. This is what you think is best. You guys are the experts on this, you know?
So, Mr. Nealon, members of the board, the purpose of this is to bring it to board first.
Right.
To see if you're even interested in us doing that. There, you could very well say, just keep an eye on it, leave things as is.
I got that.
And keep going.
Things as
You and I have talked about this particular situation many times in the past, and this is not an ideal situation out there. Right. We know that. So I would expect you guys to come together and bring us some concrete solutions on this, suggestions. All right, I'm done. All right.
Appreciate you, Mr. Neely. Thank you. Other comments from the board? Vice President McFarland. This, yeah.
Yeah, I will not say that. First, let's start by thanking the staff and the administration at Houston. You guys do a fantastic job. Let's start there. Secondly, I want to be clear that, is this report to close the school?
Mr. McFarland, members of the board, this is not a report to close the school. This is a report based on our responsibility to bring you information about enrollment, similar to what we did with not too long ago with Henderson. We brought you information about Henderson enrollment, and that led us to looking at a different path for Henderson. So it's our responsibility to bring the board information when we see a school that is declining in enrollment on a regular basis, to touch base with the board, make sure that you know the cost, and to see if there's any other type of support or options, which could include attendance boundary changes. We have to be honest, but that is not a report on closing the school.
Thank you. I just want to make that clear, because when I read this, I did not take this as we need to close the school. I want to be real clear. I wouldn't be for that. I don't think many of my board members, we have as a district, have been through a whole hell of a lot in the last year and a half. Our students have, and they come first. Our staff has, and they come also first. I think to make any decisions that would change the scope of Houston at this time is completely unacceptable, and I would vote no for anything, way, shape, form for that, and I will also stand with the school, the parents, and the staff to do that. We've been through Let's back up. I really like, first let me start with, I went to a small country school. So if you haven't been enrolled or gone to a country school, had a child in a country school, you don't understand, we're looking for something at a country school that a big city school doesn't offer. And I know people at Houston understand that. We don't care if you have fancy microscopes. We don't care if we have the latest whatever. We're doing a different type of education. And I think the students and the families that are at Houston want what they want. And so anything we do moving forward, I would love to have the parents, the faculty, the administration involved, and at least look at options. I like your idea, Neil, about STEM and visual performing arts. As a district as a whole, those are fantastic things. Most schools would jump at that. I don't know that Houston would. Anything ag-based, country-based, that benefits the life that they chose and why they're picking a country school, I think is the direction we need to go in. And I think the only way that the direction to go in is to talk to the parents and the staff and know the surrounding people. Who's there? What do they need? What are their intentions for high school? What are their intentions for life after high school? What pathway do we see for our students and our staff? And the staff probably knows better than anybody along with the administration. I also think that, yeah, the enrollment is declining. Yeah, it's going to cost us a little bit more. But at this time, I would not even want this on the table to discuss for making drastic changes. We're trying to heal teachers and students and families at this time. This is not, at this juncture, I say put it in the closet, let's leave it for a couple of years or at least a year and come back and look at it. I think this next year we have bigger things to do than figuring out how to transform the school. We need to get students back in the classroom, safe, secure, families back comfortable, teachers back comfortable. That's just my personal position, so I don't know what my other board members feel.
Very good. Thank you, Vice President McFarland. Mr. Haberly?
Thank you, Mr. President. My thoughts are very similar to Ms. McFarland. There's certainly nothing wrong with looking at enrollment. We've done it with other schools. It's okay to do it here. I understand what you're saying about your responsibility to make us aware. When I first saw this, it was no way, not now. All I keep thinking about is our distance learning year. We're coming back this year, and I think we owe it to the families and the students to have a little sense of stability. So I don't believe in changing course for Houston School at this time. It may change, but for the coming school year, I say leave it alone.
if we want to try to entice other people to go there, we could give it a shot, but that's a shot in the dark unless we actually talk to people and know what they want. And I think Carlin also mentioned that if you go to a country school, and it's a smaller school, you have a whole different set of expectations and of what you want. If they didn't like the combination classes, they would have already left the school. If they don't like the 7th and 8th grade program, they would have already left the school. They, again, go there and stay there for different reasons. I don't want to talk money about whatever at this point, because money is, in my opinion, insignificant compared to what the students need and what the families need. So again, I have no problem in looking at other things that might attract more students. But obviously this year, there won't be any changes. But even for next year, my vote would be leave it alone until you get some real understanding of what we have and what we might change before we even do that. And again, next year, leave them alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edward. The other comments from the board? Mr. Porter.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this through a lens as a parent and a teacher. And I think what generated this report tonight was a lot of bad communication. Although I appreciate your report, Mr. Young, and as always, you've done an excellent job. As a teacher, you're going, if they close the school, I go into the barrel and I get maybe an assignment somewhere. I've lost all my seniority somewhere. I've lost it at the school. Now I don't have any status. Go wherever there's an opening, hopefully. As a parent, you're going, oh my, I might have to make situations with changing my school, going to a different place. What do I do? Who's going to take care of my kids? How do I arrange the transportation and so forth? So there's two areas here that I'm really worried about, the parents and the teachers. When with the parents, of course, the families and the students. And I don't like how this was done. This is something that's long range, that needs to be done with a lot of subtlety and communication from the people that live out in that area and the teachers that work in that special, rather unique and wonderful environment that's out there. And I think we should, my opinion, I've been out there, is leave it alone. We have so much stuff to worry about right now in terms of test scores, where our kids are doing academically, student achievement gap, so many things that we need to be looking at, RBED, PBI, I mean, there's a whole host of things. And Houston is unique, special. Maybe we want to spend a few extra bucks there. Okay. But as for the parents and the teachers, we need to treat them with the respect by giving them a voice, and we need to listen to them and ensure what avenues we're going to take place. So that's my feeling. You got a hard no from me on anything in this, unless you want to come up with creative ways to improve enrollment. That would be great. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Mr. Conexton.
One short comment. First of all, I guess I don't see on this report anything about the student test scores and how they are doing out there. And so are the students in fact being successful with the current situation, or are they lagging behind students that maybe there are other schools with different opportunities? So that's something else I think it needs to be looked at before we decide, yes, we're going to leave it alone or we're going to do something else.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Conexton. Other comments? Vice President McFarland again.
Well, I think test scores are important. I also think that to judge anything within the last 24 months would be unfair to the staff and the students. And I think that you're going to get a different brand of education when you're at a country school. We have an obligation to give our students, all students in our district, the best education possible. And I do feel that the staff that's in place can handle that. And if we need to make adjustments, they will handle that. Am I correct? I see nodding.
Mr. Freitas, if we see test scores
Wait.
in any school, why don't we ask from Houston to give us test scores?
So anyway, all right.
Mr. Freitas, members of the board, if I could just comment. Hearing loud and clear, no, leave as is, all that. Does that also include no to support that may be available to combination classes, or to try to provide some type of support, extra staffing, pairs in classrooms, something of that nature? So is the intent of, let's leave it as is, take a look another time, just, leave the structure as is, does that also include the other options that were there as well?
No, Dr. Washer, I think support would be a great addition to assist in the combination classes. Being president, I get to go last. So, Mr. Nava, you get to go second to last.
I already talked about this before, and I know the Houston people were here before. We've worked with you before, and the main thing is, I know that we're successful and you come in because the teachers are satisfied with combo classes. Obviously, we're getting something that is done education-wise, and I really support that. I support anything that closing a school is not my deal. But the thing is, we need to have a needs assessment. If you teachers that are in the combo classes, you need to have a needs assessment. What do you need from the district for you to have a better education? Not a better, because you've already done a good job to help you with the students. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Nava. I'd like to thank Dr. Washer, Mr. Neal, Mr. Young for this presentation and for doing your due diligence and providing this board with this very, very important information. Houston School, quite frankly, you're one of the things that we do not get complaints about. We get a lot of complaints about a lot of things, but we do not hear about that. And we appreciate the unique experience that we are providing out there for your students and for your kids. One of the things that my day job requires us to look at would be, is there substantial change for us to change our ruling? Before we take something to a judge, we have to have substantial changes to revisit this. And I'm looking at these numbers that we have up here on the slide. Yeah, there's a big change between 160 and 144. That's 10%. But we see that we've been within 5 students for the last 3 years. So I don't see a substantial change as a statistician to do that. Also, I see that we have our largest kindergarten class that we've had in the last 3 years with 13 students. So that shows the potential for more growth. I'm sure no one in Houston would turn down additional help, especially in the form of pairs, if we're able to provide that. So yes, Dr. Washer, if you are offering that, they are taking it. But quite frankly, if it's not broke, let's not fix it. I think it's unanimous on this board that Houston is going to stay in this forum with additional support. Am I right, board?
Yes.
All right.
Extra support, I'd like the input to come from the parents and teachers and from me. Those are the people on the ground that they tell us. They tell us.
Obviously, we will work closely with all of our community stakeholders and everyone in the Houston there to get the good fit. But since that's just our comments, we also have public comments on this. But I think you have the idea of where this board is going on this, so for what it's worth. So, Michelle?
Thank you, President Freitas, members of the board, and thank you, Houston teachers, for being here. They are a community, they are a family, and they've been through a lot as this board directed change on their site. I can tell you every square inch is being used by their facilities. I'm sure they could use some more space or elbow room to do things. These teachers that work out there have multiple hats that spin because there are so few staff members, so the support I'm sure would be greatly welcomed. Thank you, Mrs. McFarland, Mr. Heverly, Mr. Porter, Mr. Knott, everybody for your support and looking at this as the school that it is, the little gem that sits out there in the country. The numbers may not be up, and I think there was some miscommunication that kind of brought a lot of angst forward with this and talking about closing the school. And so I really like your comments tonight. Let's investigate, go further as to what other needs they may have to better this little gem. So there are teachers here to speak. I don't know with your direction going forward. I like the sense that I'm getting from you as to have them evaluate and give input. They have a lot to say and they have a lot to offer. Not all the teachers could be here tonight and expressed they wish they could, but they have class. They had other plans prior to this meeting, and we're a little upset today knowing that they could not come to speak about the possible closure, because that's kind of what they heard. So thank you for your words tonight, and I will let the teachers speak to the unique needs that they feel is important to share with you tonight.
And thank you, Michelle. And like we point out, it is unanimous. So it is unanimous. So I don't know if you can do better than that. So very good.
Ready?
Other comments from the public? Yes.
Hi, Lisa Grassi,
Hi, Lisa.
Woman in Blue. I had to dig out the scrubs tonight. You know.
Very good.
I came ready for a fight, and I appreciate everything you guys said. I see I don't have to fight with you anymore. You see what a gem Houston is. And you're worried about the combo classes. My oldest son just turned 19. Went to Houston K through 8, Lodi High. He's now in Sac State doing computer engineering.
Congratulations.
Meet Mr. Matthew. 3 of Matthew's teachers are sitting in the crowd tonight. Mr. Matthew's a freshman at Lodi High. All A's but 1 class. Combo classes are not a problem with education. They're great, they work great. I've actually asked him before, I said, Matthew, how do you feel about it? And he goes, well, if you didn't catch something the first year, you catch it the second year. If you guys have any questions about how the kids are doing, I have examples in my own house, and you can ask Mr. Matthew any questions you might have.
Very nice.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Mr. Matthew, for coming. Thank you, Lisa. Other comments from the public?
Does a teacher count?
You absolutely.
Okay, my name is Angela Lindsay, and I have been a teacher for 24 years. I have taught in this district for 15 years, and the last 10, well, this is the 10th year at Houston. By the way, I'm technically not a math specialist, but for 9 years I taught it at Houston. This year I'm not teaching it. I came prepared to throw down. The numbers that you have are not accurate, by the way. So there's a little bit of a difference in these numbers here. I do the yard duty and I count the numbers, and they're a little bit off. But I really want to say thank you so much to all of you for taking a really positive approach to this. I'm very grateful to hear you talking about wait and see. The little school of Houston is vital to our community. We literally are using every space. Every space is used on campus, and I remember that was a big talking point when moving another school to the site, that having all the campus used and full classrooms, etc., would be really making the campus more cost effective. So every single space, including our stage, is being used. So rest assured, that's not an issue. There's nothing empty out there anymore. I would also like to really, I'm really excited to hear that you're thinking about using the, making it a focus school, especially with the community hub money that potentially might be coming our way. And there are some certain ideas that we have. No teacher is dying to teach a combo class. That is 100% sure. It's not something we die to do, but when you do it, you become good at it. And so we feel confident in our skills, and we understand how it works. It does not daunt us. We don't run screaming for the hills. We teach it. So thank you also for the comments of not looking at test scores for the past 2 years, because I cannot possibly, having given tests, no child is concentrating on a test score right now and hasn't been for the last 2 years. So I really appreciate that. I think that's a very kind thing to consider, and giving a lot of grace. It's also hard to have your community get together to talk about something like this when we're not still allowed to have parents on campus. So really, it's really awesome that we are having very positive comments right now. It's an utter relief. I'm sitting next to Noodles, who started crying over here. But I really, just from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much on behalf of our campus and our students. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Darnell. I teach a 5-6 combination at Houston. And just thank you. I was over here with tears too. We really appreciate this. When we saw this report first, our first thought was, okay, just like 2 years ago, here we go. But I appreciate that you understand that all those numbers represent people. Our students, our staff, our families, our community. So thank you. And I also appreciate all the ideas presented. I just got STEM certified recently through the district, so that's one thing I know we were already talking about. That would be great. I love the options of that. And I also appreciate your communication with us, and we look forward to when a decision is made or our next steps that is communicated in a timely manner, and the respect and consideration is shown to us. So thank you again so much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more comments from the public, I guess that will conclude our report item. Thank you, Ms. Young. Thank you, Dr. Washer. Moving on, we have comments from employee groups. Any employee groups wish to address the board on any items? Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you, President Freitas, members of the board, Dr. Washer. Thank you for that with Houston. I'd like to talk about a kind of serious matter, and I have a copy for Mr. Freitas. Unfortunately, did not realize that the copier jammed on the second copy, so there's one copy of the first page to share, and then one for each of you. The letters that I'm passing down are, one, the letter from the district's attorney to Leah regarding the request regarding the cyber attack, and then the letter that we just sent in response to that letter. And I thought it was important that you saw those. We understand that there is time given for investigations, and we do want to thank our IT employees for their tireless efforts to get our network, servers, applications up and running for our teachers and students. However, currently what we're lacking is some clear communication about this cyber attack. Have accounts been hacked? Is this ransomware? We don't know. Our letter to the district asked about a breach, which, according to the Office of the Attorney General, defines the use of breach in this kind of situation. Yet you'll see in the response letter from the attorney that that was a word that we should not have used and object to us using breach. We would like to know what files have been accessed from personnel, what confidential information on each employee and all of their employee records, discipline reports for employees, in payroll, insurance, employee records, medical information. Included that are all family members and all family members' identity. Banking information. Most employees have direct deposit. Was that accessed? All of our employees pay into CalSTRS, and you pay into CalSTRS on our behalf. That has vital information for all of us, both present employees and past. Was that accessed? Risk management. Anyone with any injury or accident, did they have access to those files? Of course, that leads us also to our email and all of the programs associated with teaching. All of those outside programs, Scholastic, for example, as a vendor, signs a confidentiality agreement with the district and keeps student records confidential. What part of that was breached? This is serious and concerning for every parent, student, and employee. We do need more details. We understand that is an ongoing investigation, and we're told that the outside whatever law enforcement has been notified, but the attorney is actually doing the investigation. We'd like to know in a timely manner what is ongoing in this investigation and what has been found out. We need more details. LUSD needs to be more transparent about the information, and what has been shared has been very little. All members of the community know is that there was a disruption. We are going on 4 weeks now. We know there was a breach. We know that the board needs to find information, and this needs to be given out to our families, our community, our employees. They need to know what information was accessed in order so that they can prepare to secure their identities, their credit, their banking information. I know that you know this is a serious event and hope that we quickly come to some announcements so that people can do the right steps in protecting themselves, their families. When you think about all of those that we give our social security numbers for with insurance, that's our entire family and who we want to protect. How will our children's identity be protected in the future? So we would ask that this is whatever has been found out, that we publish and we acknowledge and we let the community know what next steps they need to take in order to protect their identity, in order to protect their credit, in order for them to protect any misuse. Now, the letter that came from the attorney says they don't know of any misuse. We want to know what's been accessed. We want to know what's been breached so that we know how we can educate ourselves to defend against everything that's out there that could damage what job I may be employed, my children may be applying for because their social security could have been hacked. So we really need a timely information being given to all employees, all students. Families need to know. you think about a special ed student, if those files were hacked, how is this information out there? So please, be more transparent about this situation with our community and our employees. Next, I'm concerned about the families that didn't get to actually speak to you tonight. I recognize some of them from a couple of years ago from Live Oak. You had a large contingency. Some parents, now they're gone, were here just a few minutes ago wanting to speak about, it sounds like the same situation took place, that they knew that they were not going to have their spots. That is a large contingency of our group, that is migrant workers and their families, and when they move, we set up a temporary policy for them 1 year. We worked with Lee Kostkowski, the migrant camp. Those students were online at school, and I know laws have changed, but as a board, as you just expressed, that kids count and kids matter, I saw two moms crying earlier that they want their kids to be at that school. That's their home. That school is their home and has been for years. So I hope that, kind of ask Mr. Young if he could translate, and I hope that we again could form a committee and talk about what we can do to help those family parents that are out there and keeping those students with Lodi Unified. Thank you for recognizing the loss that we had at one of our school sites through CSEA, and we are actually on Miwok land, and we recognize the Miwoks for giving us their land today to sit upon. Thank you very much for your attention to this, and I hope that we can get some information quickly to protect our members. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Do any other employee groups wish to address the board? And I'm saying that specifically, I apologize to Randy Cordova of CSEA. He was at our last meeting and I didn't see him. Other members of the board did see him, but he did want to express that, and some didn't see him. But he also wanted to thank the board for the our reopeners. So I'm seeing nobody. So we will move on for comments from the board members. Any board member comments? Mr. Everly?
Just one for tonight. The topic came up about campus security, and it was mentioned that we should not forget our middle schools also. I mean, we're talking about 2,000 kids in typically a pretty small campus. So I think it would probably be a prudent thing to give us some information of how we're doing with our campus security. We did get some information from a parent about an increase in difficulties at the school, and I want to make sure that we do have the help and support that we need. When you have campus security there, when my kids were going to high school, I'm telling you that campus security, they knew those kids, and those kids knew them. And just their presence was a calming effect for the school. And so if we could get some information, whether it's open session or otherwise, I think that would be good, because then we can place it on the agenda and make adjustments if we need to. However you determine it, it has to be discussed. We need to bring it forward so we can talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Everly. Other comments from the board? Mr. Neely? All right.
I want to echo the comments from Mr. Heatherly. We need to take a look at what's going on the campus. Is there an increase in violence on the campus? And if so, what's that due to? I mean, we've been, it's been out here 11 years now. You know, we've got a lot less suspensions than we used to. And that seems like a good thing, unless we're recycling people who should be suspended and we're leaving them on campus to cause these issues. That's something we need to look at. I know that's an unpopular stance, but we need to take a look at that, all right? And then review the whole security setting on that. But I absolutely agree with Mr. Everly on that. The comment was made during public that students were wearing masks during PE. Is that happening? I thought that masks were only worn inside.
We'll have to follow up on that.
Okay, if you would, please. Also, I'm going to ask you to put this on your list, if you don't have enough. We need to take a look at how we're allocating, I've said this before, but how we're allocating our VPs. What schools have. Right now, it's just Title I, and I'm talking elementary. If it's they're Title I, and then we go by, no, it's not even Title, excuse me. It is simply by student population, and that's it. And we ignore the other factors that play into whether we need more VPs on that campus, or more than 0.5. So what are the things that target the need for a VP at a school? Well, it's going to be disciplinary problems. It's going to be things like probably
Special ed numbers.
what?
Special ed numbers.
Yeah, special ed numbers is a big one. So, and the number of, not incidents, but it seems like there are a higher percentage of kids who have problems that come from the economically disadvantaged. So we need to take a look at all that, come up with a new formula on how we're going to allocate VPs. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Any other comments from the board? Mr. Conexon.
Thank you. When part of my bike ride is to go by Creekside School, and so I've been watching, kind of sound like a dirty old man, but I've been watching the kids play, in PE in the afternoon, and what I've seen is kids bouncing balls, running, laughing, and having a good time. So I had the occasion this last week to go into Creekside School and be interviewed by one of the teachers, and I went and talked to Mr. Heck, the principal, to find out who this teacher was. His name is Gino Comparato, and by all accounts, from what I observed, he's a great teacher, and by all accounts of the people I talked to on campus, everybody likes him, but he's only an 80% teacher. So this is for Mr. Young, that, we need to have these guys we want them here. We want that kind of teacher here. So if there's a way to find 100% contract for Mr. Comparato, I think that would benefit our district. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Max. Other comments from the board? Mr. Nava.
Yeah, somebody started something, but October 29th was George Neely's birthday.
Oh, be darned. That is so true, isn't it, Mr. Nava?
Yes.
Well, I think it's appropriate that we sing happy birthday for him. So happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. Neely. Happy birthday to you. And you gave up Hawaii to have spend your birthday with us, so we greatly appreciate
Mr.
that.
Nava did it to me, I'm glad he did it to you.
Remember that, Ron.
Very, very nice. Thank you, Ms. Nava. Other comments from the board, Mr. Porter?
I never got a happy birthday song. That's okay. I don't. That's already embarrassing. Couple of things. Workstations, standing workstations. Talked to Mr. Khan about that. Teachers, turn in your request. Mr. Khan said they will be approved. I was told that wasn't happening. Standing workstations are important. As we know, sitting is the new smoking, and we want our teachers up and moving about. And Mr. Khan and I had a little talk about that. Safety at the high school. So I had a good friend that I've taught with for years. She had to park her car because she had duty for the football game out in the street. And she came back and the window had been shot out with the old Casey in the front seat for her. Do we need better safety? We've already talked about it all night long. Last one is SB 328 that I spent some time on, where the middle school started at 8 and the high school started at 8:30. There are some questions about zero period and whether they're part of ADA and some limitations. I think we need to start looking at that soon because the start times change next year, and here we are moving into December, and we haven't broached that subject at all. Plus, I want to make sure that students at the high school level and the middle school, as we saw today, have an opportunity for extended time and extended periods. And the way that it's set up by the state, it's kind of interesting because they're worried about kids starting too early. But yet we're still the state that has daylight savings time. So I want you to think about that statement for a minute. Next Sunday we fall back an hour, right? But later on we spring forward. So we're still the state that does that, even though we passed a, what was that? Didn't we pass a ballot issue by a state years ago to do away with that, just go to regular time? So it's kind of interesting how our state works, but we need to get out on that and get ahead of that. That's SB 328, and I'd like some information on that from our people that deal with it.
Other than my wife's birthday, fallback's the greatest state of the year, right? There it is. All right. Other comments from the board, Vice President McFarland.
Okay, boys, you
Just to talk to the board here. We do have a schedule that superintendent came out on the start of school next year and what's needed. I don't know if you saw it.
Has the public seen it?
Good question.
Yes, we shared it at the part of the superintendent's report, I believe.
Mr. Freitas, members of the board, we have not had a public conversations as to what next year will look like. We have had internal conversations to set up sample schedules.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Washer. Vice President McFarland.
I just wanted to give a heads up to boys, my birthday is Christmas Eve, and I would like you have the last, in December, I expect you to have well-tuned, you were, it was a pathetic performance this evening. And I would like a much more robust happy birthday.
That was it.
That was my heads up.
It's a special day anyway, Christmas Eve.
Yep, yes it is. My only other comment is that I know we're talking a lot about safety on our campuses. And so I just don't want us to go overzealous because we're in transition from coming back to school from COVID. Well, I think it's extremely important. We're hearing, I know many board members hear the same thing that I hear. We get that, my friend's friend told me that. And I have a teacher on this campus who experienced this. I'm not saying they're not factual, but I'm not hearing a lot of them from the horse's mouth. And I'd like the details, the school, the teacher that it actually happened to. If we're getting those types of rumors, I call them rumors, you know. And so I want to make sure that if we are looking at additional staff, I know the campuses would love to have it, but I want to make sure that we're not doing it blanketly across the district and that we are hitting the schools or the target campuses that are really having more difficulties than other. And that's my comments.
No. And thank you, Vice President McFarland. I have a picture for my board comments that is not, there is me. Dr. Washer and I spoke to a class of aspiring administrators in Lodi Unified. It is a little scary. These are individuals that are looking at staying in the district in an administrative position, as put on by Mr. McKilligan and Amber, and they're going to be meeting different members throughout the year. They had Dr. Wash and I for a question and answer session. So this is my selfie with the group, and they were great questions and all, and thank you very much. You know I am a big fan of growing our own, and if these individuals want to become administrators, I think we'd have a great crop of administrators. So, well, welcome.
Real quickly, it was nice to see you smiling in that picture, Dr. Washer. It's been a long 2 years.
Yes, she did point that out. there were challenges in the last few years. But anyway, it was a great class, and I think great information was shared by all in attendance. November 10th is the 246th birthday of the United States Marine Corps. We like to recognize the Marines for there. Also, November 11th is Veterans Day. Two of our board members served in the armed forces, Mr. Knackstead and Mr. Neely. I hope my board members will join me in that we have a resolution recognizing Lodi employees and members of the Lodi family that served in our armed forces. So we will have that at our next meeting, which will be on the 16th. And then last but not least, Houston family, once again. You could have left after we we were unanimous, but you stayed, and that just shows how special you are in your commitment to the district. So thank you very much once again.
Very classy.
Very, very classy. So very nice. And that's the end of board comments, unless there's other comments from the board. Further comments from the superintendent?
No further comments, thank you.
All right, then reports from board advisory committees.
Yeah.
Yes,
Real quick, we had a delegate conference meeting today, and was going over some of the bills that have passed and some of the things that are coming up. I'll give you a more detailed report on it a little bit later. I've still got some notes I got to put together on it. But it looks like there's a lot of money
That's good.
coming. So, as we talked, I thought about perhaps we should relook at how our legislative committee is organized and what we do.
Good idea.
And maybe get some more input from people and get some people to go with us, such as maybe a couple students or parents or teachers go with us when we meet with these legislators.
Very, very good idea. Since the governor did sign over 600 bills after the last session, so there is.
Not all of them helped.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Any other further comments? Then we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Houston School. You know, I have to tell you, I'm super And I have this old, and you know,